And then the second lockdown hit. And I was like, oh no, what have I done?
Oh, shit. Do you want to hear something really scary? And I mean really scary. It's almost 5 whole years since the pandemic. What the hell happened to all that time? 5 whole years. Time is such a strange moving beast. And okay, on a serious note for a moment, like the pandemic threw everyone's life into disarray, and there were winners and losers, right? There are some people who really benefited from that time, and there are some people who really didn't. And I personally, I don't really know yet. I think I'm still kind of figuring out whether the changes that have happened in my life since then are a good thing or a bad thing. I might need another decade or so to make a decision on that. But for this week's guest, the pandemic, and more specifically the lockdowns, were an unexpected catalyst that really kick-started her drag career. So who is it I'm talking about? Well, it is the drag queen Jackie Daniels, who joined me to share how her journey was shaped by moving from small town Armidale to the bright lights of Sydney, Australia, and the special bond that she had with her drag sister that encouraged her to dip her toe in the sequined water. I don't really know where I'm going with that imagery. And how nights at the Green Park Hotel, a beloved gay bar in Darlinghurst that shut its doors in 2020, really made her the queen that she is. Oh, and of course, we talk about the highs and the lows of lockdown life. Ugh, it's gross. My name's Kay Anderson, and this is Lost Spaces, the podcast all about lost queer spaces and the queer journey, I've said journey twice in this, the queer experience, the queerience. Anyway, this is Lost Spaces. It's a podcast, and it's about stories, and it's about talking, and it's about figuring out your queerness. Why don't we get into it?
And then I moved to Sydney in 2012 because I was working in real estate at the time, and I was just kind of hating my life, and I was like, but this is so... I was like one of those little gays that was just like, I don't think there's anything here for me, but I didn't know how to escape that. So I was like, I just fully had a mental breakdown at 21. You know, I've had several since then, but that was my first.
And you always call them mentee bees?
Mentee bees, babe. Always mentee bees. A little mentee bee. Keeping it light. And then, I quit my job on a whim. Didn't know what I was doing. Just quit my job. And then my brother was living in Sydney at the time, my older brother. So I went down and stayed with him for a few days, caught up with some friends that I knew down there. And then I remember sitting somewhere at some bar with my friend. And I said, I think I'm just going to move here. Just no plan. Just going to move here. And then went home, probably packed up. A week later, moved to Sydney, and then here we are. But I never thought that drag was never on the horizon.
So let's go, I'm just going to change my line of questioning. Sorry, totally. We will get back to drag in a second. I'm really interested in you talking about being the only gay in the village, for want of a better term, and growing up in that small town and not escaping immediately.
Yeah.
And why that was. And so to answer that question, can we go back to the queer awakening of Jackie D?
Jackie D, the queer awakening. Look, I think I was always a very effeminate kid. I was always... There was no secret. I was just gay. I was just gay.
Gay spelled G-H-E-Y.
Yeah, capital G-H.
Gay.
You know what I mean? Capital G-H, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Always very feminine. So that's why growing up, even in primary school, high school, I definitely copped a lot. I was definitely bullied a lot because I was very feminine. I was just called gay a lot. But also, I didn't really know what that meant either. Growing up, you didn't know what that meant. You just kind of copped it on the chin, and you just knew that. I just knew that I was different. I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that I was different because none of the guys really were like me at all. And I was like, I just really had girlfriends and stuff. And then Yeah, it wasn't really a gay awakening. It was more so when I got older, maybe into like year 9, year 10, and I had a very close-knit group of like girlfriends that like, it wasn't really a conversation of being gay. It just kind of like turned into that. And whilst I was never out at any point, I was never out at school or anything like that. Also because I went to Catholic schools, Catholic primary schools, Catholic high schools.
Oof.
Yeah, I know. In our school holidays, I would actually go to Christian camps. Yeah, I know. Oh my
And
God,
do
scandalous,
what?
right? We'll pray and stuff.
Wow.
And also, but my parents were not Christian at all. Like, we didn't go to church on Sundays or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just went because my older brother was going, and I didn't really have any friends. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just do that. You know what I mean? I just didn't. I was a bit of a loner, so I was like, I'll just go and meet some friends and hang out, whatever. It seemed like a lot of the popular kids were going.
Wow. What a weird town.
Super weird, right? Yeah, so then, because they had a lot of community from our town that were based in Sydney as well. So there's a lot of Sydney people that would come down to it as well. It's a pretty big thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I used to, like, speak in tongues and stuff. Like, it was cray. Like, it was pretty cray. Oh. Yeah, I know. But I didn't know any different. I thought this was, like, a very normal experience. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I just, the one thing I do remember taking away from that experience as a whole is that, one, that not for me, but also that, like, you can feel these things. Like, you're allowed to feel gay. You're allowed to feel, like, bad thoughts. You just can't act on them. Mm. So one thing that I remember was, like, ingrained, and I was like, oh.
So you can feel gay, but you can't feel gays.
Yeah, you can feel gay. You're allowed to feel those feelings. Feelings are normal, but you can't act on those things. The action is the sin. And I was like, oh. Obviously, upon reflection now, it is crazy. But back then, I was like, I didn't know any better. I was like, I thought this was a very normal experience.
Well, and so when you heard that message, were you like, okay, I understand that. I won't act on it.
Well, I kind of was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. That makes sense why I feel this way.
Oh, I see.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, someone's telling me, giving me an answer that no one else is really giving me, that is like, you know what, you can feel that way, but don't act on it. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, I guess a lot of people must feel this way. They just don't act on it. That was my first initial thought.
And did they give you any guide beyond that? Because it's one thing to say, you're allowed to feel these feelings, just don't act on them.
Yeah.
But then there's like a whole set of other rules that you need to apply to your life in order to make that work, right?
Totally.
Like, go and marry someone of the opposite sex, and this is how you will manage that relationship. Do they give you any of that advice, or is it just as simple as just don't be gay?
Well, it was all focused around, like, prayer. Like, when you feel that way, pray about it. When you feel this way, pray about it. When you do this,
and then
if
it doesn't go away, is there any guidance for that?
No.
No, it's just keep praying. Just keep praying.
Totally. Also, I felt like if you talked about it for too long, then it becomes this big thing. So like,
okay,
we'll just pray. We'll just pray. I feel like praying was the answer to be like, right, if we pray about it, everything's fine. Little did they know it was not fine.
I think maybe they knew.
Oh, honey, it was no secret, girlfriend. Hello, it was no secret. But yeah, and then I would like all the Sydney people would come to our country one, and then maybe in another school holidays later in the year, we would go down to the Sydney one. Mm-hmm. You would stay at like these families' houses and stuff, and like board and all this sort of stuff, and it was just like. Back then it felt normal, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, it's so wild. Like, that's so crazy. That was how it was growing up for me. Like, that's how... I didn't really have a gay awakening. I was just gay, but obviously being told so many times that, like, it's wrong or, you know, it's not wrong, but pray about it, or it's, you know, I had people at school telling me that it was wrong and gross, and then people telling me that, like, yeah, it is wrong, but just pray about it and you'll be fine. It was a very different experience. And then obviously upon leaving school... and having my different group of girlfriends that obviously never went to like those sort of camps or anything. There was a very different conversation that was happening. And it kind of made me feel more comfortable to be like, okay, like maybe I can like, you know, work out what this means and that sort of stuff. And I probably didn't come out till I was maybe like 19 to my friends.
Well, and so how do you figure out what this means?
I think it was more so like meeting some like-minded people as well. I met one of my best friends now, also my drag sister as well, now. They're from Armidale as well. And we always knew of each other, but we weren't friends. Like, we never hung out or anything because we thought if we hung out, People will talk.
Yeah, yeah.
People talk, people
Well, they'll
talk.
make
So we can't hang
assumptions,
out.
yeah.
Can't hang out, yeah. And then obviously after school, we like hung out. We met once together at a pub, and then the rest is basically history. And he moved to Sydney 2 months before I moved to Sydney.
Wait, I don't understand. The rest is basically history. What do you mean?
Well, then we moved to Sydney together, basically. And then here we are.
Oh,
And then,
I thought you meant that you hooked up.
oh no, we've never hooked up.
But then, so
I think we're the only ones in our friends' history, in our friend group, that is not hooked up. And, you know, Sister Dick will make you sick. We don't want to do that. Hello.
Okay, I'm not sure if we've fully answered the question here, because we were talking about like the leap from going to these Bible camps, being told being gay is bad. Well, no, being gay is okay, but just don't actually do anything that's associated with being gay, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And you kind of internalizing that message and being like, oh, okay. And then getting to the point where you were like, actually, no, I'm gonna go and do that gay shit. Do you remember like the moment of being like, nah, I'm rejecting all of this?
I don't remember there being a specific moment. I just remember being like, probably after school, we were young, we'd go to the pub every Friday, Saturday night, we'd go out, we'd have drinks. I think it was just more like meeting people outside of like, you know, a school setting or like, you know, a Christian setting, and like seeing different opinions. And like, whilst there wasn't a lot of queer people that I was meeting, it was more so like people also accepting me for who I was, because it wasn't a secret, obviously. Like, I was just very flamboyant, you know, and no one having an issue about it. So it just felt more like there was more an acceptance about, there was less and less people being like, you're wrong, you're this, you're wrong, you know what I mean? It was more so like an acceptance. So it made me feel like, oh, okay, like, maybe this is fine. And then, you know, when you start seeing different guys out there, and you start you thinking about them like, oh, he's pretty cute. Can I think that? He's pretty cute. And then you kind of have those chats with your girlfriends and be like, oh yeah, it was kind of like you just became one of the girls, you know? And that was, I think that's what made me feel probably better, because you just became one of the girls. And that was probably one of the best things. And then I remember actually not really coming out to the girls, but, you know, talking about boys and stuff like that. I remember saying to them, because most of them had boyfriends and stuff, who I was friends with as well, but I'd never really come out to them. I remember being at the pub one day and just being like, guys, I think I have to come out to them. And me being so delusional, thinking, they have no idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, me thinking, oh my gosh, I'm scared to tell them. What if they don't want to be friends with me anymore? Like, thinking, and I know the girls were just like, I think you'll be fine. Like, they know, girl, get a grip. Like, get a grip. Like, honey, they know. Honey, we all done know, okay? And then I was just like, I remember being at the pub, and I remember we were all sitting around the pool table, and I said to the guys, I was like, guys, I'm just going to say it now so that it's out there. And I was like, I'm gay. And they're like, okay, fucking sweet. And I was like, it was very much like a broy thing. And I was like, it was really cute. I felt really good about it. I was like, I know that like they're probably like, girl, hello, we know. But I remember they made me feel really good about it. Like, they gave me big cuddles. And they were like, oh, don't be so stupid. And I was like, okay. It was very sweet. And I thought it was very sweet. And I'm still friends with them. So we're like, been to all their weddings, you know, all that sort of shit.
Okay, so the original question that I had was about...
I was like, I know, I love a tangent, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologise. I'm just like making sure we're keeping on.
Yeah.
The fact that like you came out at this age, but you didn't leave your small town until you were 21. And this is a question that is deeply rooted in my own experiences and my need to escape as soon as possible. So there's a lot of bias that's coming with me asking this question. But why didn't you just fuck off immediately?
I don't even know. I think it was more so like I didn't know I had that option. And, I come from a very small town. Like, at that time, the big city was scary. Like, the city was scary. Like, I remember even going to Sydney when I was a teenager and being like, well, this is too much. Or like, I mean, look, now that we're talking about it, maybe it was because the Sydney that I knew was the Sydney that I'd been to when it was like, the Christian camps and that sort of stuff. Like, that's the Sydney that I knew. So I was like, maybe I didn't want to go there. Do you know what I mean? I was like...
okay.
Maybe on hindsight, look at us reflecting. Maybe it could have been that. But yeah, I just remember being like, I don't know if I can do it, or like, maybe it was like I couldn't afford it or something like that. Like, I don't remember there being like a reason why I didn't just pick up and go. I thought maybe I was just okay. I thought maybe I didn't need to. As soon as I finished school, I went to uni. Hardest 2 weeks of my life, I'll be honest with you. It was a really hard 2 weeks. And then I said, you know what, I'll defer. I'll just have a gap year.
How's that going?
Quite a long gap year. I'm not sure if I'm ready to dive back in just yet, but it has been almost a couple
Waste
of decades. I got out before they charged me for it. And then I was just working like my retail job that I had when I was like a teenager, still working that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got asked by this real estate in Armidale to come and like cover. I had a friend that worked there, like, can you come and cover someone's going on holidays, just cover the front desk for a week or something, a week or two or something like that. And I did it. And then they offered me a job, a full-time job. And I was just like, sure. And I was like, oh my God, look at me. I'm so grown up. I get to wear a suit every day. I'm like, look at me. I'm an adult. I'm such an adult. And then I became a property manager. And then, I did that for probably like a year or two, maybe. I don't really know. Maybe a year or two, 18 months, something like that. And then I think after a while, I got so shit at it because I just didn't want to be there. I just didn't want to be in Armidale anymore. I got to a point where I was like, I feel so like, it became very monotonous. Each weekend was the same. All my friends were like meeting people. And I was like, well, I'm not meeting anyone. You're just not here for me. Like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And I just felt a bit lost. And I fully that's why I just fully had a breakdown. I remember just going home. I was living in Armidale at the time with my friends. So like 20 minutes away from where I was from. I remember going home to my parents' house one day and just like crying and being like, I don't want to go to work. I'm just over it. I hate it. I'm so stressed. But the reason was because I just didn't want to fucking be around anymore. I just didn't want to be in Armidale because felt so stuck. I felt so like trapped. And what's the future for me? What's for me? And I just felt so lost. And my parents were like, well, if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. They were like, my dad has always said to me, the job you have when you're 19 is not going to be the job you have when you're fucking 40. It's not going to happen. It's not going to... And I was like, that's so true. The job that I had when I was 26 is not the job that I have now. The job that I have now might be the job that I have, It's just like, life changes. And back then I didn't realise that. I thought, this is me. I'm going to be a real estate agent for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you had a mentee B and you were like, right, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to drop everything. I'm going to move to Sydney. Do you remember how that felt, making that decision?
It felt very scary because I just didn't know what it meant. And I think I was lucky that, I quit my job and I was like, I'm just going to have a few weeks off to just sort myself out, see what I want to do, see what the next step is. And my parents are very supportive of that. They were like, you know what, just do it. Makes you feel good. So then I went to Sydney to visit my brother who was down there, and also my friend Joe, bestie from the races. He had just moved down there maybe like 2 months before that. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's part of the reason I felt a bit like, my friend's gone, I'm lonely here now, like what am I going to do?
So not like, well, if he can do it, I can do it, because he's a fucking loser. And
I don't know. I feel like he was definitely like, and I know that I was like gay. But when I say that I'm like gay, and he's going to probably agree with that I say this, he is gay.
Okay.
I'm probably the gayest now because I'm his drag queen full time. But they were like the bleach hair, like he was very out. And I was like out, but I was not like out. Like he was very out. I think I also looked up to him because I was like, oh my God, that's so brave. Like, look at you moving down to Sydney, like... He had friends down there too. And then when I went down there, it just felt so freeing. And then we'd go out for drinks and we'd go shopping, whatever. And just no one would bat an eyelid. No issues. No one gave a shit. There were so many different characters that like no one gave a shit about you. And I was like, this is kind of freeing. Like, obviously small town because everyone knows everyone's business.
Yeah.
But Sydney just felt so freeing.
And so did you have that experience in Armidale then where people were like looking at you and doing double takes?
Oh, yeah.
When you walk past?
All the time. Not so much like invasive, but it's sort of one of those things like, everyone knew that was the gay one, or like you were that character, you were that person. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then moving to Sydney, I was like, there was just so many people and so many different characters that like, you just kind of felt like you could almost blend in. Mm-hmm. And it was very much like a different experience to what I had before. I think probably the biggest draw card is that like, I can still be me, but also like, it's almost like celebrated, or even if it's not celebrated, it's not frowned upon.
Yeah.
There's no negative. That sounds good to me. And then I remember sitting and having a drink one day and I said to Joe, I was like, I'm just going to move. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go pack up my things. I'm going to come down here. No plan, no job, nothing. And I just moved down, and that was it.
Oh, that's the best
Probably a
way.
week later.
Okay.
It was so fun.
So first days in Sydney, what sticks out in your memory most from that time?
Yeah, I honestly just felt free. I just felt free. It was so freeing to just, I felt like there was no rules. You don't have to be a certain way. You don't have to live a certain way. You can do whatever you want. If you don't hurt anyone, there's no issues. Like, it was one of those things where, like, I feel like growing up in the country, there's certain rules, or even back when I was living there, there were, certain rules or things that you had to do, or, it was definitely like a play-by-play of what your life should be. Whereas in Sydney, it was like, there's no rules here. You just live the way you want to live. And it was just, I remember just feeling initially just like, this is so freeing. I just felt free. It felt like I was just on holiday for like 6 months, to be honest. Probably like, more like a few years, to be honest. But like, yeah, it just felt like I was on holiday. I felt like I was living in a different world, and it was just so fun. I remember just being like, it was very different to the person I was like before I left to move to Sydney. Complete polar opposite.
So how?
Different mindset. The mindset just changed so, like, it was just incredible how much the mindset changed. I was like, because I felt so trapped. The mindset was that I had to live a certain way, or I had to do this, had to do that, and then, but the mindset just changed from being like, in Sydney, do whatever you want. Because Sydney's so big, and I think the size probably was what it was. It was, a small town to go in this big city. Do whatever you want, go wherever you want, like, and I was still young, so I was out partying every night, and I'd go to work in the morning, go out party with my friends, go to work the next day, probably in the same clothes from the night before, because I just was like, oh my God, I felt like Carrie from Sex and the City. Like, it was very that. Probably more like Samantha, though, to be honest, but like, it was very much that energy.
Well, as long as you're not Charlotte.
Well, honey, no one's ever Charlotte. Boring.
I think there are some people who
I know, not in my friendship group. We've got no Charlottes.
Okay.
We've got predominantly Samanthas, I think, I'll be honest.
Okay, good. Right. And then drag. So when, like, on what point in your Sydney journey were you like, do you know what, I might put a frock on?
Probably a couple of years into living into Sydney. Moved to Sydney, was working at the pub, and I just remember having so much fun and loving it. The community was so nice, and the company I worked for was so great. I remember my boss being like, do you want to become like a duty manager, like a shift manager? And I was like, sure, why not? And I just started there. Within like 6 months, I got transferred to be assistant manager at another venue in the group. And then I ended up working for this company for about 10 years. And during that time, I was licensee of a few venues. And then at one point I was licensee of Darlow Bar in Darlinghurst. And me and my friend, we had planned to have Mardi Gras off. So maybe a month before Mardi Gras, my friend Joe, he's going to come up a lot, to be honest, because he's part of the drag journey. He's going to be a lot. Joe, Amber Rose.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Amber girl, what's up? He was friends with another drag queen, and they'd had a little makeup session, and we decided that we were going to do drag for Mardi Gras this year. And that was probably 2016 probably. And I was like, all right, Joe, paint my face. Like, let's have a practice. So 2 weeks out from Mardi Gras, I was like, let's have a practice. After work, I went over to his place, and he painted my face. And let me tell you, I thought I was God's gift to drag. I thought, there has never been a more beautiful woman than me.
I'm here to save the scene.
And even because, like, I'm a bearded drag queen, so I've always had a beard. Minus a few times in lockdown when I said, let's give it a go. Never again. Always had a beard. And even with the beard, I was like, I'm a woman. I am so beautiful. You cannot tell me. Obviously, look, I literally was looking back at them yesterday, and I was like, ooh, girl, that was a rough time, wasn't it? But I was like, for a first go, I've seen worse. And then for Mardi Gras, we went out, we got dolled up, and Joe did my face, and I never did my own face for a little while. Joe did my face. We went out for Mardi Gras, went to Heaps Gay Party, and let me tell you, when I tell you moving to Sydney was freeing, drag was so freeing. It was like it was such a different experience.
Let's go back a step. So this night when you went over to Joe's place and you were going to like try the makeup on.
Yeah.
And you'd agreed that you were going to go to Mardi Gras in drag. were you just like, oh yeah, it's just like shits and giggles, it's just a bit
Totally.
fun?
100%.
Okay, so you weren't like, oh, maybe this is going to be the start of something
Never.
until you saw your
Never.
reflection in the mirror and you were just like, well, I can't not.
Well, the world needs this. Do you know what I mean? That was very much like that. It was very much like we went over there. To be fair, maybe like for a couple of times before that, maybe like for a year or so before that, we talked about it.
Uh-huh.
We talked about, oh, maybe drag could be fun one day. Like, but it was never like a conversation about, oh, we want to do drag. We want to give it a go for fun one day.
Yeah.
As I said before, if there was ever a birthday party that was like a costume party or like a dress up party, that was my jam. Like, I loved that. Like, let's dress up. Halloween, so fun. Like, love a costume party. Love, like, just dressing up. Just becoming an alter ego, becoming something different. So then, yeah, we went over and I was like, let's just give it a go. Let's just have a laugh. And I remember just obviously thinking I was beautiful. Going out, everyone was just like, oh my God, you look so good. That was probably what it was. It was a lot of, oh my God, you look so good. And I was like, oh my God, can I get this all the time?
External
Oh my God.
validation. Give it to me. Give it to me.
So obsessed with me. Stop it, seriously. But no, it was very much like, I don't know, it was like you could be so much freer. And what was so funny is that night, the first night out in drag for Mardi Gras, I remember turning to the side. We're at the party dancing or something. I remember turning to the side and one of the HR managers from my company was there. And I was like, hello. And it was just so funny. It was so funny. And we just laughed and I was like, yeah, this is probably a different world. But anyway, here we are. Yeah, no, it just was such a freeing experience. And it was just so fun. Like, it was just so fun. Because it just felt like we're dressing up, we're just being silly, like, you know, everyone wants to stop and get a photo with us. But it was Mardi Gras, you know what I mean? It was just the heightened of heightened thing. So, you know, and I think that also it was because the first time, I'm a big unit. Like, I'm like 6'4". I have like size 13, 14 feet. Like, I always thought there was never a heel that would fit my foot. There was just, they don't exist. I was like, they don't exist. And if they do, they're going to be this ugly little lady shoe. And I remember being once, before we even got into drag, being at House of Priscilla. And I saw this pink glitter shoe heel. And it was massive. It was so high. It was massive. I remember looking at it and thinking, I reckon that will fit me. And I put them on. And that, sure enough, they fit like a glove. And it was like I was born to walk in a heel.
Okay, wait. So this was like before you put the makeup on?
This was like 2 weeks before when we were like, we'd already just discussed doing drag. Like, and we were just like, we just wear joggers,
but,
you know what I mean?
But are you being totally, completely honest with me then when you say like, oh, I was just thinking about it as a laugh? Because it seems like there's quite a
100%.
few clues here. That,
Well, no, because I just think
was...
it's one of those things where I like dressing up. So I was like, back then it was never a plan to like do it a lot. We just wanted to do it, but we were like, you know, we'll go have a look at, we're going to do drag. Like, we wanted to like...
Yeah, okay.
We wanted all the bells and whistles to do drag.
But you were in a shop looking at drag.
It definitely does seem like this is all premeditated. But I swear to you, we had just said, let's just give it a go one day. And I think it was only when he was like, oh, I've learnt some makeup tricks off another drag queen. Maybe let's try them on you. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Like, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, when I found these heels... It was never even a plan to wear them I didn't even wear them for Mardi Gras. I just wanted them because they fit me.
And they were glittery as well.
They were pink glitter. Yeah. They were pink glitter. It was fierce.
Okay, so you've had this evening at Mardi Gras. You've had all that fun. You've felt free by the experience of doing drag. Explain to me what the feelings are the very next day when you wake up.
Was quite hungover, I'll be honest. Probably, I was sore. I was tired. But I remember just also being like, that was so fun. It was probably only realised maybe a few days later how fun it was because I was quite tired and whatnot. But, you know, it was like, I remember just being like, that was just so fun. It was just so fun. And at that time, there wasn't like a plan to, you know, do it again. We were just, it was Mardi Gras. So we just did it because it was Mardi Gras. You know, it was just gay Christmas. You know, once a year, we just kind of dressed up.
And so what's the second time in drag?
Well, the second time was whenever we'd have drinks at my friend Joe's house all the time. And then occasionally I'd go over there and we'd have drinks and be like, oh, do you want to just put on makeup. We would just practice makeup. Like, for no reason other than, like, we'll have some drinks and we'll talk some shit while we, like, play with makeup because we just thought it was fun and silly. Do you know what I mean? There was never a plan to do it again. We just thought, and just to take photos and be like, oh, look at us. There wasn't a plan to go out. We just wanted to be, like, take photos of ourselves because we loved the feeling of it. You know what I mean? Like, and we just, like, practice and stuff. Yeah, we just would practice on the floor of the kitchen. Like, it was so fun. There was never a plan to go out. I think maybe I couldn't tell you exactly when the second time I went out was, but I know one of the other times that was pretty iconic because it was the first time that I did my own makeup we went to the Katy Perry concert at like Ace Arena or whatever it is, a big Katy Perry concert. Me and Joe were like, let's just go in drag for no reason. We just said, let's just go for no reason whatsoever. So we were sitting there getting ready, and because I didn't understand how to do makeup very well at all, I'm still not a makeup artist to this day. I know how to do this, that's about it. And then I remember not really knowing how to do eyebrows properly. So then in a shop, I found these eyebrow stencils. And I thought, I've cracked the code. I have cracked the code. This is a scientific masterpiece, whoever invented this. And I remember using them. And for the first maybe 5 minutes, thought, that's great. Upon reflection of those photos, it was not great. I just looked very inquisitive, like, all night. They were so high. I remember just thinking, oh, God. Even though I look back, I remember, but also it was one of those things where you went in drag and everyone just thought it was fabulous. Like, people loved it, people wanted photos. It was one of those things where we looked like absolute mongrels. But people were like, the whole energy was just so fun. I loved it. That was probably one of the second times. But also, it just...
Well, and also, they're at a Katy Perry concert, so they don't have taste.
Hello. And also, it was great because I was wearing my big pink glitter heels and I'm already 6'4", so I could see everything very clearly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's handy.
So sorry to all the little kids behind me, but sorry about it. Big girls in front. It was quite fun. It was quite camp. But yeah, it just became like one of those things like every now and then if we had an occasion, we would just dress up and go out. For like a birthday or something, we'd just dress up and go out. We'd just be big crossies, big cross dressers, you know.
Well, and so at what point were you like, maybe I could like do something more with this?
Well, I think it was maybe like the Mardi Gras after that one, probably like a year later. I was working at King's Cross Hotel, and we'd changed. When I was there, I organised a big Mardi Gras activation, and we changed from King's Cross Hotel to Queen's Cross Hotel.
Okay.
And it was the first time we'd done it, and it was amazing, and it was really fabulous. And I said, you know what, let's have some drag hosts. So I went and booked myself. I don't think we got paid for it. But me and Joe were just dressed up, and we hosted like the Friday night at the venue, like, you know, just mincing around and not doing shows. We never did shows then. We never did performances or anything. We would just take photos and really just drink, to be honest. And yeah, we
harass
would
people.
Just the vibe, literally on the street. Like, it was so much fun. Like, so we did that a couple of times. And then I think once people saw that we were doing that, I think that alluded to the fact that maybe we were bookable queens because, well, we booked ourselves, essentially. Insider trading. And then ever since then, I was like, I think it was because, you know, I was in the industry for so long, people knew who I was, and then they knew I was doing drag. And then ever since then, after that, people were like, oh, do you want to come host this? Do you want to come host that? Do you want to come host that? And it was only a few things here and there. And it wasn't like a lot. It was only like every now and then. It wasn't like a regular thing. It was just every now and then. And it was really fun and we loved it. But it definitely wasn't like a plan to do it long term or like a full-time job. It was more like a hobby, like a little side hustle. We would only ever really do drag together as well. We became like a drag duo. We became the Liquor Sisters. Because she was Amber Rosé and I Jackie Daniels, obviously. And then yeah, from then on it just kind of became this thing. And I remember my dad asked me once, he came down to Sydney. I remember him asking me once, would you ever do drag full time? And I said, no, that is crazy. Don't be so stupid. Don't be so ridiculous.
Well, why was he asking that? Was he asking like, I'm a bit worried that you're going to, would you?
No.
Or like, would you consider it? I think you should.
No, it was just a very genuine question. It wasn't like, he'd be supportive either way.
Okay.
Like, Dad is like my biggest fan. Like, he is Papa Daniels. He is Jackie's biggest fan, like 100%. Like, it's very cute. So he was, I think it was a small, like, just a genuine question. I was like, no, just would never do that. Like, that's just wild to me. Wild to me. Cut to a few years later, here we are.
Well, okay. Where does the Green Park Hotel come into all of this?
Well, the Green Park was also one of the venues that was under the group that I was working for. And because I was running the Darlow Bar for a while, which is a block away from the Green Park. Mm-hmm. So it's just down the road. So both in Darlinghurst. And I obviously knew the manager quite well. And then...
So you put pressure on them to book you?
No, this is the thing. We had never had any plans to, obviously. But even before drag, Green Park was one of our favourite places to go. It was this tiny little pub. It was so small. It was literally basically just 2 rooms. It was a room with the bar around it. And then it had a room with a few booths and a pool table. Like, it was tiny. Like, it was the smallest thing in the world. Like, didn't even have a restaurant. Like, it was so small. But that's why I think we loved it, because it was just this little cute little pub on the corner that felt, for me, it felt like very much like a country pub, like very much like a community pub, because it just had the same colourful locals and the same vibe, the same bar stuff in there. And it was just super, super cute. And it was very different to like an Oxford Street pub, because Oxford Street pub are like, you could walk past and it's like, gay, we're gay, it was very like that, you know what I mean? Whereas the Green Park, you could walk past and be like, aside from maybe like a rainbow flag in the window, it didn't scream homosexual, but you'd go in and be like, this is gay, like, because everyone just was gay. And it'd been there forever, but we loved it because it was just, we'd go there and catch up with friends, and it was just chill, like it was so chill. And everyone was just so fun and nice. Like, all the locals are so nice, like, and you kind of get to know them. And it was just it's just the cutest pub. Like, it just felt like a country pub in the middle of the city, in the corner of this little hub. It was my favourite thing in the world. And then after we'd done the King's Cross Hotel, maybe like the Mardi Gras after that, the licensee had asked us to come in and host a trivia night. And we came in and we hosted a trivia night. And I think that was the first time that my dad and my little brother had come to Sydney and seen us. And we were mongrels still at that point, but we thought we looked really good. But that was the first time that they'd come and saw us together, host a trivia night together, me and Amber, Jo, as the Liquor Sisters. So that was really cute and fun, and that was the first venue that anyone in my family had seen me do drag. And it was really cute.
What were the anticipatory feelings when you knew your dad and your brother were coming to see you perform?
Look, I think because I know they'd seen photos, I was like, okay, they kind of know what they're going to see visually. I'm not sure what they're going to get, like, in terms of, like a character-wise, because back then it was more so, like, as soon as I was Jackie, I'd become this, like, crazy, like, I don't know, like, very over the top. And I was like, not that it isn't now, but yeah, it was very much an extension. So there was a bit of hesitation being like, oh God, I've got to make sure I look good, like, blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. Like, I was very stressed. But as soon as we were there, and they just loved it. Like, they were so supportive. They loved it. We got some photos. They were very cute. And a few of our friends came and, like, sat with them as well. And it was very, very cute. It was just really wholesome. It was very cute. And I didn't think it would go a different way. Like, I definitely didn't think it would be bad. But I was like, there's more to that hesitation of being like, oh God, here they are seeing me at my full form of homosexual. I've evolved like a Pokemon. But no, it was very much that. So it was the first time we did a number, and I was like, and then it was very fun. Like, it was super fun. Like, end of the night, we did trivia, and at the end of the night, we did a number, and it was really cute, and it was just really fun. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been like, do you want to come host a trivia here or host a trivia there? So we did like sporadic things everywhere. We'd do like Liquor Sisters trivia, and it'd be like just random talk shit and be silly, really. So it just kind of escaped from that. But I think because our hub initially was the Green Park, I think that kind of like made us feel like, oh, okay, maybe we are like drag queens that could, be in the community or something, like, you know what I mean? And even then, it wasn't like we were going to do it full time or anything. We didn't have, plans to be these big drag queens in Sydney. We were just doing it out of fun, and people would ask us to do things and we would just do it. So it was just kind of like, we just got a lot of opportunities. And obviously it worked out well that I was, working in the industry and had a lot of contacts. So, still to this day, it's all about who you know.
Yeah. And so when did you get to the point where you were like, yeah, actually, maybe I will do it full time?
I think it was after the first lockdown. So I was doing it a lot before lockdown. I was doing it, not a lot, but I was doing it here and there. We had like a monthly gig we do together. So we were doing that. And then for Mardi Gras, I remember the Mardi Gras just before lockdown, because lockdown hit maybe like end of March or something like that.
Yeah.
We, me and Joe were working for Mardi Gras. We had probably our busiest Mardi Gras we'd ever had for us. And it was really busy. And then afterwards we were like, let's just take ourselves away for a couple of weeks, you know? And it was really cute. And we had a really cute little weekend away. And then we got back, and then a week later, lockdown hit. And we were like, well, thank God we went away, because can you imagine? And then, the lockdown hit, which was kind of like initially very stressful, because I was working in hospitality. So my whole industry had just basically gone to shit.
Yeah.
So, and you know, my housemates also worked hospitality. So we were just all sitting at home being like, what the hell? So occasionally me and Joe would get in drag, and we'd go online and we'd do little Instagram lives, and, you know, it gave me a lot of time to, like, you know, work on my face, practice the old makeups, you know.
Practice stenciling those eyebrows on.
Girl, those stencils are in the bin. They are gone. No thank you anymore. That is grey. Do not recommend an eyebrow stencil. Cannot stress that enough. Don't do it. It's a lie. It's all a lie. And then, after that we reopened, and then I went back into hospo, reopened the pub, and I remember it just being such a stressful experience. It was just so stressful because, you know, there were so many different rules coming into play and all this sort of stuff, and it was really hard, and it just took a real toll. And I remember maybe we reopened in, June? And I think around Mardi Gras time, when things started to open up a bit more, me and Joe got really busy again doing drag together. And then maybe after that, a few people had messaged me and being like, hey, we're looking at doing some new sort of events at work. Would you consider hosting like a regular trivia or something, like a regular trivia, like a weekly trivia? And I was like, yeah, look, I can probably make it work in my, I'm the boss. I can make my own schedule. I can make it work if I had to, you know, I can make it work. And I'd been offered a few things, and I thought, do you know what? Maybe it's just time. I was so stressed at work, and it was all a bit of a shit show. And I was like, maybe it's just after lockdown, it's time to just dive in the deep end. Let's just dive in the deep end and give it a go. My plan initially was like, I'm just going to quit my job, work casually bartending, and do a bit of drag on the side, just to, you know, see what happens. Now or never. I can always come back to Tospo if I want to, you know, it's not going anywhere. So I thought, let's just bite the bullet and do it. So I resigned, quit my job, and I think I maybe had two regular nights like locked in at that point, maybe one or two. Quit my job, did 2 weeks at the venue that I was doing the regular trivia at, and then the second lockdown hit. And I was like, oh no, what have I done?
Oh shit.
I was like, oh no. I was like, well, I've fucked myself up, haven't I? There we go, I've ruined that. And I reckon for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, I was a real Debbie Downer. I was a real sook. Another mentee B had hit the wall, let me tell you, okay? Another mentee B had come around the corner. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do now. Like, everything's gone to shit, blah, blah. And I was really in the thick of it. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I remember waking up one morning, and I got a few messages on Instagram being like, hey, you know, we've got the team at home. Would you and Joe consider doing an online trivia for us? And I was like, sure, like that sounds so fun. Like, let's do a Zoom trivia. And then we did maybe 1 or 2, and then it blew up. We just got inundated with people being like, come on, can you host this for us? And I reckon some nights we were doing like 3 or 4 back to back in a row of like Zoom trivias and stuff with just teams across the country. Some in New Zealand as well. Like, it was just wild. People were just like, it all became like word of mouth, and we just got so busy. And it was so much fun because we got to just put on makeup and sit at home and talk to people online and make people laugh and have fun. So it kind of like, it was, whilst initially the second lockdown was scary as hell, it actually was, I'm going to say, like a blessing for me, a blessing in disguise for me, because it actually helped me reach more people online. So then when we got to reopen, got to do so much more. People just kept on knocking at my door, and that's how I probably am now, doing, 5 or 6 days a week, because of how many people I reached doing that. And they wanted to meet and do things in person. So it's kind of like, it was a crazy turn of events, But I'm pretty lucky to have a lot of people like support us doing that. It was really fun. It was really fun.
Okay, so let's go back onto topic, and I want to ask about the Green Hotel again. When did it close down?
It closed in the end of 2020, I believe. End of 2020, it was sold. Yeah, the company sold it.
So this was during a lockdown?
I think it was in between lockdowns.
Not during a
I think it was
lockdown?
in between lockdowns.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And so do you remember hearing the announcement, it's been sold, it's closing down?
Yeah, I definitely remember hearing it through the grapevine. It was quite jarring to it initially because it was like a staple of the gay community. Like, it was just one of those venues that I thought, I just never thought that would ever happen. Do you know what I mean? I just never thought, like, it was just, it was always one of those community pubs that was just a staple in the corner. And it wasn't a big venue, and it was quite a small venue. So, I always thought, it's never a threat to anyone. Do you know what I mean? It's this small little venue. It'll be gorgeous and cute forever. And I just remember thinking, that's really sad. It's just such a beautiful space, and like literally the cutest locals ever. Like the cutest locals that will be there from, 4:00 on a Friday till probably 5 p.m. on a Sunday. Like, they will be there all weekend.
Just propping the bar up. And when you look back on that space and it's a place where you cut your teeth in the drag scene and got going and mingled and jostled and berated audiences.
Very much so.
What do you think Green Park Hotel taught you about yourself?
Do you know what? It was always one of those venues that came with a different level of acceptance. Do you know what I mean? I've done events in other queer spaces, like bigger queer spaces before. And for the most part, 80% of people are super into it and super love it and are super supportive. And then there's that 20% that like don't really get it. Or for me, don't really get my drag and like my beard and like what I do and what I bring. But like for the Green Park, it was a haven of like acceptance. I wouldn't say it was like a room of all these misfits. It wasn't that. It was just a room where, because it was such a small, tight-knit group, it just felt like a family. It felt like a real family. And it was just one of those things that's always going to have a very special place in my heart. And I know there's a lot of history before I was ever there. But what I felt from being there was just so much love from everyone that was in that venue. Always so much love. And they were always into it. We do shows, and they were just always, they get up and dance with you. Like, it was always just felt like a very much like a family vibe.
Well, and just to tie a bow in everything, if you think about the journey that you've been on since you arrived in Sydney, and you think about that 21-year-old you that was like, fuck it, getting out of Armidale, gonna go and like see the big city. I'm gonna just like figure things out when I get there. If you could talk to that person now and be like, yo, what's up? I don't know why I said, yo, what's up?
Just trying to be...
You would never say that.
Just trying to be... Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up?
What's up, girl?
No, what's up?
So if you were able to have a conversation with them, what do you think would surprise them most about who you've become?
I really don't... I always think, like, if you had have told me that I was going to be, doing drag, not even just as a career, just in general, I think that I just would have laughed. I don't think that would have been a serious thing that would ever crossed my mind. And I think I go back to, what, like, my dad used to always say to me, like, what your job you're doing when you're 19 or when you leave school and you're 20, it's not going to be the job that you are going to be doing your entire life. Like, life's going to change. Life's going to go in ebbs and flows, and life's going to happen. You just don't know what's going to happen. And that's what's exciting about it. At the time, that was stressful. So I think I would just be like, just go for it. I always just think, what have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? Because at the end of the day, you've just got to live your life. You've just got to live your life.
Your house, a roof over your head.
Well, also that. I mean, also that. But
money.
They're all materialistic things, As long as I've got a wig on my head, we're good to go. Now we'll see.
That's us yet again for another week. So, if you love this chat and you want to find out more about Jackie, then I implore you, is that the right use of the word implore? I encourage you to go and follow Jackie on Instagram. She can be found at the Jackie Daniels, and that's Jackie with an IE, not with a Y. And also, if you're in Sydney, go and see Jackie perform. Go and see one of her many, many quiz nights. All the details about that, I'm sure, are shared on her page, and I will make sure there's a link in the show notes for this episode. Right, my name's Kay Anderson. This is Lost Spaces. If you want to find out more about me and about the show, follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Lost Spaces Pod. But if that's not your thing, that's totally cool. And I will see you here next Wednesday. Have a great week.